Empire.
Welcome to the latest edition of All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Osner. I'm maybe hockey writer Steve Wino. This is the post-free agent edition, Karl, of All's Caps, and we're going to get to Darcy Kemper and the goaltending situation a little bit later because that's a biggie. But first of all, Caps trade for Connor Brown. They signed Dylan Strome. They signed Henrik Borgstrom. They bring back Marcus Johansson. Your initial thoughts on what Brian McClellan did in free agency.
I thought it was pretty good. Addressed some of the things that needed to be addressed. Obviously, right? The goalie was a big thing there, and then finding some players to fill in for Tom and Nick while they're out. I think he did exactly what he needed to do without really having to give up a ton. Right?
Right.
I think all the contracts seem pretty solid. The Kemper one, we'll see. It's hard. It's almost like it's eerily similar to the Grubauer situation, right? In Colorado, starting goalie, and then gets a nice payday to go to Seattle, and it's sometimes hard to live up to the expectations, and the team is quite a bit different. Playing in front of the Avs versus Seattle and Washington.
Yeah, but the Caps defense is better. Well, we'll get to this. The Caps defense is better than the Kraken defense for sure.
Exactly. So we'll see. But I mean, overall, I think everybody should be pretty happy about it. Those are great pickups. I really love the Connor Brown pickup.
Oh yeah.
I think he can be great. I think he can definitely fill in for whatever we're gonna miss from not having Tom in there, and he's got some unbelievable PK numbers, and I just love a player like that. So I think that's pretty solid. So overall, yeah, I think it's a good one.
Yeah, somebody asked me last night, like, what do you think? I was like, Brian McClellan did exactly what he was supposed to do. To me, this was exactly the free agency thing. And I'll humble brag a little bit. When a colleague asked me on Tuesday night, what's your prediction for what the Caps are going to do? I said, sign Darcy Kemper and sign Dylan Strome, because so I got 2 out of 5 or whatever correctly. The Dylan Strome signing, to me, more than anything, I think, Karl, says that they're preparing for Nick Backstrom not to play for at least all of the regular season, or at least until the deadline, and then figure it out.
Yeah, you know what? So I'm curious about that one too. Like, I'd love to know the inner workings with Chicago there, and he's playing on the top line.
Yep.
And didn't want to. I don't know what his qualifying offer was supposed to be, but didn't want to do that, and then kind of let him walk. So I'm curious what.
Well, the Blackhawks are tearing it down. And by the way, the Capitals have 3 guys now from the Blackhawks: Eric Gustafsson, Henrik Borgstrom, and Dylan Strome. The Blackhawks are tearing everything down to the studs. Patrick Kane will be playing somewhere else by March. So I don't want to take too much away from them letting Strome walk, because he was highly sought after in free agency too.
Yes, he was. So yeah, I think it's pretty solid though. A good player to play on the top 6, and maybe even throw him in there on the top line every now and then if you have to. Like, who knows exactly what the lineup is going to look like as the season goes on. But yeah, I think that's pretty solid. I don't know him all that much as a player. It's one of those guys that I haven't seen a ton of, but I've heard the name a lot, and whether that's a good thing or not a good thing, I don't know. I was always the type that didn't want my name to be heard. So
yeah, that was you.
I don't know exactly.
Look, I know Dylan Strome really well. Like, I actually know Dylan back to his days with the Erie Otters, because he played with Connor McDavid there. So when I was working at Canadian Press, I would drive down to talk to McDavid and always catch up with Dylan Strome. As a player, look, his skating's not the best. He's not the greatest skater, but he's got good hands. He can score. He can make plays. He's a perfect guy to run probably a second power play. Like, if you got Kuznetsov running your top power play with Nick out, and you've got Tom Wilson out, really, you need a net front, which is Oshie. You've got Carlson up top. You could really put Dylan Strome in a feed Ovi spot, or you can put him running the second power play unit. That's the kind of stuff Dylan Strome can do. He's not an all-around player, and you kind of hope that Peter Laviolette doesn't get frustrated with maybe he's not the greatest defensive player or skater, but he does so much offensively and playmaking-wise that I think he'll fit in amid all the other guys like Marcus and Eller and Mantha, who can do all those things.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a really good point, actually, about Mac and not getting frustrated, and Laviolette, about not getting frustrated with the play, because Gustafsson's kind of the same way, right?
For sure.
It's a bit of a high risk, high reward thing, and you need to let those guys do what they do good, and in return you're gonna have some issues. But but there's a lot of players like that in the league, and the ones that have a longer leash can sometimes do real good. And it's nice. You can just see with Strome, you get put in a good situation with opportunity, and you can put up some numbers. Same thing with Brown. You put up some numbers when they let you play. So I don't see that being any different here. It's when you have to do the right things, you have to do the right things, right? And it's a hard thing to get through some players' heads. They don't necessarily want to do it, but it can be done, and their mentality can be changed. And I think Laviolette's a guy that can really help with that. So the team definitely looks better than it did going into free agency. So
for sure.
I think we're on track. That's a nice thing. And I want to say I'm really happy. I know we'll talk goalies later, but I'm really happy with Charlie Lindgren's coming to DC as well. So
I forgot you know Charlie a little bit.
I know Charlie a little bit, so we'll hit on that. I'll give you some funny Charlie stories too.
Oh, I love this. And to me, I'm almost salivating over the lineup of what it looks like when Tom's back. Because you can look at Connor Brown, and he could play on a top line with Ovechkin and Kuznetsov easily, and he could slide down and play with Eller and Mantha later. And you've got moving parts with guys like Marcus Johansson and TJ Oshie just to move around that lineup. By the way, TJ, great performance in the celebrity golf, right?
Unbelievable.
While we're at it.
Unbelievable. The fact that he was leading day one. Are you kidding me? I think he was pretty happy, maybe a little bit shocked. I don't know. Like he's got the game to go really low. So we have a little group chat going with him and a couple of the dads around here, and everybody was so fired up that he was in that spot, and it just puts your name on the map, right? Like,
it's round one leader.
It's one thing to be there, but to actually lead a day after day one with some of those players there, crazy. And love seeing the NHL representation with Pavelski right there in the playoff too, except that putt, it's going to haunt me as much as it probably is going to haunt him, that 6-7 footer, whatever it was to win. So it was a really, really fun tournament. If people listening to this, if you haven't watched it before, tune in next year because it's so much fun to watch. The players have fun and there's a lot of star power there. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so I lost my train of thought, but I remember one of our editors was like, "Hey, does Oshie still play for the Caps?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh yeah, he's the first round leader at this and that." I'm like, "Great, we got a story about TJ as a golf story."
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you know what, he puts a lot of time and effort in getting ready for that tournament too. Because you don't want to go all the way out there and embarrass yourself, right? So he takes it really serious, leading up to it, and then from everything I hear, it's just an amazing party, and you meet some really cool people. So yeah, it's a heck of a story. But yeah, having we were talking about the line combinations, right? And
thanks for getting me back on track.
Yeah, it's all good. there's gonna be a lot of options. They can work this lineup really well and get guys into good roles. You just hope that that when everybody's healthy and someone may be playing start of the year on the top line or second line, then all of a sudden they get bumped down to the third line, that they don't regress. And that happens to guys because they don't feel like they should be moved. But I hope that everybody buys in, and if they do, then yeah, you got a fairly deep lineup here. So that's maybe shocking for some people to think, because I know a lot of people have been maybe talking down on the Caps a little bit, thinking that it's not necessarily their time anymore. But I think that guys can surprise in this lineup right now.
Yeah, and I don't know what it means for Connor McMichael, really, because Pierre Laviolette really liked him at center in the middle. I don't know what it means for Lars Eller long term. He's only got a year left on his contract. That's problems the Capitals can deal with later. We're going to talk goalies in a little bit, but I ran into you on the elevator last night. For those who don't know, the Capitals were hosting the NHL club business meetings in person for the first time in 3 years. And Karl and I were texting yesterday about when we're going to do this podcast, and just all of a sudden I get off the elevator at these business meetings, and there you are.
Oh man, it was so funny too. So I went there to help out. There was a skate for some of the kids from 7 to 8. So I was going there to get on the ice with some of the NHL alumni and help with that. But before that, I wanted to go check out the KPMG suite because I did like their documentary video with them, and I've been wanting to see this since we recorded. Yeah. And it was well worth the wait and well worth the time to get out there early to see it, because the thing was unbelievable. But yeah, so we ran into each other there. I was busy riding the elevator up and down because they didn't have the key. The security guards didn't have the right key to turn it to get me to the event level. So I rode.
So how'd you get there?
Eventually, one of the guys took me to a different security elevator, and we went down. But I rode it from from the main floor to the second floor and back probably between 7 and 10 times, up and down. And so I just kept running into people, and it was actually kind of funny. So we eventually made our way down there. But yeah, it was a really neat event. Sweet that the Caps were able to bring everybody in there and see what they do here and showcase the city a little bit, because it is around the league. I don't think people realize how great of a city it is, which kind of brings us back to free agency too. I think some of the players are starting to understand that from the talk between friends and stuff in the league, and they're realizing that it's a great place to come. So yeah, it was a fun event. I don't know if you enjoyed yourself, but I sure did.
Oh, it was a blast. It was all the kind of team business people there. They had all the kind of the food offerings, all the stuff that like the people who get to go to games and have fun enjoy. Like I'm working, I'm slumming it and all that. But like the people who have the season tickets or the club tickets, like it's a pretty good experience.
Yeah, no kidding. You know what's really funny too? So George Larocque was there, right? And we're on the ice after, and there's one of the guys that was helping one of the instructors, and I look, and George has him up over his head, spinning him around in circles, and I'm kind of laughing. And then all of a sudden, I hear someone say, "Hey!" I look over, and it's one of the ice crew, one of the Zamboni guys, waving me over. So I go over there, and he's like, "Someone needs to tell that guy in the red there to stop spinning people around over his head." And I'm like, I feel like I want you to go tell him that, 'cause I don't want to. And so I'm like, I skate over there, and I'm going to go pretend like I'm telling him that, because I'm not going to tell George. And I said to him, like, "Man, that was sweet. How'd you do that?" He says, "Well, it was from when I was doing Battle of the Blades. I learned how to lift people and spin them overhead, because I had to. That was pretty much my only job." And he's like, "So if anyone out here is going to be able to do it, it's me." And I'm like, "Oh, there you go. It was safe then. It was all good." So I thought that was really funny, because we almost got kicked off the ice because George was spinning people over his head.
Well, I'm glad it was safe. It was under professional direction and all that. When we come back on All Caps, we'll hear from Brian McClellan on Darcy Kemper, and of course, Carl. I guess we'll tell some Charlie Lindgren stories here on All Caps.
I think he's a good goalie. Obviously, just won a Stanley Cup. He's had a lot of good years, a lot of good performances. Seems like a good person, good character, good team guy. And I think it's exactly what we needed to go into next year.
That was Brian McClellan on the edition of Darcy Kemper. This is All Caps with former Capitals defenseman Carl Alsner. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. 5 years, $26.25 million for Darcy Kemper. Maybe a bit of a risky deal, but to me, Carl, like this is stabilizing a position that has had kids at the position, young guys who haven't known what they're doing. Since Braden was here, this is the stabilization of the most important position in hockey.
Yeah, it is. And look, it's a starting goalie. It's hard to go out there and find a starting goalie, someone who's done it before. And for whatever that equals, five and a bit, I think it's not that bad of a price, right? Like
it's not at all.
I think we were used to having two young guys making not that much for a starting goalie, and you kind of think that this is great. We're so lucky, but that's what we were all complaining about all year last year too. Sure. So you got to pay somebody to play that position, and it's just hard to find somebody. And if you do have someone, teams don't just let them walk very often. So it's a need that was addressed, and it was addressed with probably the best option that was out there. There was, I guess, Campbell, or you can make a case for and against him, I guess, as well too. But yeah, I think it was a really good pickup. And if he's a great guy and great guy in the room, you can never have enough of those guys. So I think that we're pretty solid there. And having a number two goalie as well, to be able to find that, it was a little worrisome there for a day or two, not having any goalies. And now all of a sudden we're set.
Yeah, and you know what? It really did happen early. As soon as the Avalanche traded for Georgiev from the Rangers, Max zeroed in on Kemper at that point. He tried to trade Samsonov first and couldn't find any takers. Then he traded Vanacek, and then decided he was going to non-tender one of them. He's going to trade one and non-tender the other if he couldn't trade both of them. So there was always sights set on getting Darcy Kemper in here. And to me, he's the goalie, and I covered the Avalanche in the Stanley Cup final. He will make all the saves you expect him to make. Very few of the spectacular saves, but very few also of the bad goals. And I guess to me, I'll ask you as a defenseman, isn't that kind of as a player what you want out of your goaltender?
Absolutely. You hate when those softies go in. It just kills you momentum wise. It's brutal. It's one of the worst things that can happen to a team is when one that goes in that shouldn't go in, because not only does it hurt your team, but it gives the other team a little bit of life that they necessarily probably wouldn't have necessarily had otherwise. So I think that that's it's really important, and it also just goes to show you too, like how much stuff is going on behind the scenes, right?
Yep.
Like we see a move made, and we're like, oh no, what's happening? We're in trouble, panic, this and that. But these things are set up, weeks in advance sometimes of what's going on. There's a plan. There's tons of people that are figuring things out, and you just need to wait and let it happen, right? And there is times, I guess, where last minute changes happen, and maybe another team tenders a better offer, and somebody will switch. But yeah, for the most part, these things are under control. And
Brian McClellan knows what he's doing. Let's start with the PSA. Brian McClellan knows what he's doing.
Exactly. A good GM is very impressive to see them work and be able to structure deals and to make sure that things happen the way they should happen. And Mac is for sure one of those guys. And you might not get the award all the time at the end of the year, but that's a solid person that's going to be running a team.
Right. So Charlie Lindgren is a guy that I'm not sure a whole lot of people who follow the Caps know. He played 5 games for the Blues last year, so kind of limited NHL experience, but played really well in those games. I think like a .958 save percentage, 1.22 goals against average. You're familiar with him from your time in Montreal. First, Charlie Lindgren is a goalie, and then I want to hear stories.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as a goalie, I mean, he can be very, very solid. Like I remember when Pricey was out and Antiniemi was our backup, and then they called Chuck, we call him Chuck, up, and he came in the first game. I was like, holy smokes, like this guy's lights out. And I remember someone saying like, yeah, this guy's the goalie of the future. Like he's one of the best we've ever seen. So I watched him play another game, and same thing. He was unbelievable, and then had one, bit of a rough game, and then guys got healthy, and he went back, and then I guess he had kind of an up and down rest of the year, and so he went from just being the stud to maybe a little bit of a confidence thing, which is weird because you play 2 really good games and then one so game in the NHL. You should be in the positive, right? But that's the weird thing about confidence, right? It can take you a month to build, and it can take you a period to lose it. And so it's so hard. And I think Chuck lost it for just a little bit there. And then they moved on from him because we had another really good young goalie that came up, Caden Primo.
Yeah.
Very good goalie as well. And so then I was so happy when Charlie, found another spot there and played well, because he's a guy that's just like, he battles so hard. He's a very smart goaltender as well. I can't speak exactly on mental state right now, but when he's feeling confident, that's a really good goaltender to have. And if he only has to go in there and play, whatever it is, 10 or 15 games in a season.
Let's say 20 to 25 games.
Yeah, I think he's going to do really, really well there, and he can carry the load. If he has to be thrust into a starter's role, I think he can carry the load. So yeah, I love the pickup. I reached out to him right away because he's kind of a funny guy too. So I think he'll fit in pretty well.
Yeah, and Zach Fucale kind of reminds me of Lindgren in that, like, he had a couple good games and then a so-so game and gets sent back, and we don't know a whole lot about him. But Charlie Lindgren, he gets that promotion now. He was a number 3 goalie with the Blues. Now he's going to be a number 2 goalie. And look, Fucale is also around if break glass in case of emergency is needed. But Charlie Lindgren, do you have stories about your boy here?
Well, just to kind of explain what type of guy he is and some of the things he does around the rink, like he's like Max said about Kemper, good guy to have in the room. Charlie's that same way. He's first of all, shout out to his wife, because his wife is amazing. We get along with them really well, so a great wife to have in the family lounge, yeah. which is always very important. But yeah, so like Charlie is, he's kind of one of those guys that's always making a joke, whether or not it lands. Is a different thing. But then once you realize that he's always kind of being funny, then it just gets that much better, right? So like he'll come to the rink with, won't be Movember or anything, and he'll all of a sudden have this mustache on, and he'll dress like maybe a little bit awkward, just because he knows that maybe half the team will laugh, and he thinks that's good. Or you'll see him in the gym and he'll be wearing like his full spandex suit, doing like a squat with like a 25-pound plates on either side and like grunting away like it's the hardest thing in the world. And he'll just do it. Doesn't know if anybody's watching or not. Maybe one person sees it and then he walks away and gets out of there, you know? So he just does stuff to break the ice, which I think is really, really nice to have in the dressing room. And I think he'll thrive in Washington because the room is typically fairly light. You know, everyone likes to have a good time. So he's all around a very solid person and solid player, and I think he's going to be an amazing addition to the team. So yeah, I think you'll enjoy talking to him when you talk to him.
And we did talk about this in the media room, and this is no offense to Justin Schultz and Vitek Vanacek and Ilya Samsonov, but they weren't always the most great quotes or great talkers among us. And we add Dylan Strome, who's fantastic, Connor Brown, who's very good, Darcy Kemper's very good, Charlie Lindgren, who you say is very good, and I haven't had the pleasure of speaking with yet. This was a win for the media corps here, too, of a bunch of guys who talk, and I think you're right. I think these guys will add a little more levity to the room, and Dylan Strome certainly makes the team younger as a 25-year-old guy, too. So I just think this is good hockey-wise, and this is good personality-wise with all these additions.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, whether or not they go into a bit of a shell at the beginning because they're fresh and all that, who knows? But yeah, you want good people. If you can fill out a team full of good people, you know, it's solid. It's usually a good recipe. And I was going back and thinking about it, about Brown. Like, didn't he lead the 2021 World Championships in scoring too? Like this guy has the ability to absolutely go off. 5 shorties last year, I think I read. Like, I'm pretty fired up about that, because to have success in a place like Ottawa, kind of hard. You know, the team's been pretty up and down over the last little bit. So I think that I think he's going to thrive. I really hope he does, because I like that type of player, like I said. So yeah, this is a big win, I think.
Yeah, you bring up Ottawa. When we come back, let's go a little bit around the NHL and Johnny Gaudreau, some of the other moves, goaltending carousel. Talk about Penguins bringing Evgeny Malkin back. We'll talk about all that next up on All's Caps. Welcome back to All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Carl Alser. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. Now go around the league on free agency. As we were taping this, Nazem Kadri and John Klingberg still haven't signed, but it took to Johnny Gaudreau 7 hours into free agency to join the Columbus Blue Jackets. What was your reaction when all of a sudden it comes up on Twitter that Johnny Hockey's going to Columbus?
I was kind of surprised, honestly. I didn't know that Columbus was in the running like that. So yeah, a bit of a surprise. I didn't know if he had any ties to the team or city somehow.
Eric Robinson he played high school hockey with.
Okay.
That's the one sort of real connection there.
Yeah, so sometimes it's all it takes, though, right? You need at least one person there. That was the one, I guess, the one reason that I felt okay going to Montreal is I knew Shea Weber and Carey Price there, right? If I didn't know anybody there, it would have been even harder. but that's sometimes all it takes, right? So a bit of a surprise. Columbus has been one of those teams that they've had some really good players there that have come through, but
then they leave. Yeah,
they've never really wanted to stay. So I'm curious to see how long that lasts. You know, if he's going to have that same kind of feeling. But nice contract for him. He deserves it. He's been playing really well, and you know, hopefully he can entice some of those players to want to come there. You know, when you have a guy that can distribute the puck like him, then you want to play. You know, I always go back to what TJ Oshie said. He wanted to stay and watch because you got to play with Nick Backstrom, right? You get to play with a guy like that, then you stick around. So yeah, interesting play, but you know, I don't know if we want to talk GM.
Oh,
stuff
no, I look at what Columbus could do with cap space, and then look at what the Flyers and Islanders couldn't do because they didn't have cap space. So like when you go into free agency and you're handcuffed by a salary cap and you can't make moves. It's inexcusable, really. I mean, even Vegas was able to move Max Pacioretty to re-sign Riley Smith and this sort of things. This free agency really just showed, like, if you know how to manage the cap, you're great. Now, Brian McClellan did have the advantage of, and again, you'd rather have Nick Backstrom healthy and playing, full stop. Mm-hmm. But knowing that the possibility of Nick not playing until maybe February, March, beyond that, gave him the flexibility that even though he told us, we can't spend all of Nick's money, sure you can. You can always figure it out later. I mean, you have guys you can move at the deadline if you needed to clear space to activate Nick. It just showed to me how valuable it is to know what the numbers are. And shout out to Don Fishman, who is the Capitals cap guy for a significant amount of time. He knows what he's doing with the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And you hope this isn't the case, but guys get injured during the season.
It always happens, right?
Yeah. So you might still have some flexibility at some point. So yeah, we don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes either. Maybe there was something that hurt the Flyers or another team so that they couldn't really make a push. We don't know for sure. I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but yeah, you want to do everything you can to find a way to fit somebody like that in. So it's a tough one.
And the Penguins did it. The Penguins figured it out with getting Malkin, and what we're sort of speculating on this is Malkin said, "I'm leaving." Crosby called him and said, "You're not leaving," and he's like, "Okay, fine, I'm not leaving."
Well, it'd be weird. Like Malkin's one of those guys that I just would have a hard time seeing in another jersey, right? Like you've been there that long. The way that I think it's like, why not just finish your career there,
Oh yeah,
right?
him and Letang.
Yeah, exactly. So you go somewhere for a couple of years to, just to kind of, in spite of, the negotiations that are happening, or maybe don't like the guy. I don't know. At that point, ride it out. But who knows? Same thing. Don't know exactly what was going on, but it makes sense that he stays there. The Letang deal, that was a long one, wasn't it?
6 years, 36. They essentially both got similar sort of number deal contracts. Yes.
Yeah, that one makes me wonder a little bit. 6 years is a long time.
Who cares? By the end, by 4 years in, if he wants to keep playing, great. If he trades contract to Arizona or Seattle or wherever, who cares? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's the way to look at it. But I did think that there was some big money going to defensemen, in the last few days, like bigger money than expected. Saw some of these
Erica Branson to Columbus, 4 years, 16.
That one dropped my jaw. I was very surprised by that. Ben Schrock got a nice deal too. Yeah. That was pretty high.
Josh Manson got the deal to go back to Colorado.
Yeah, I think there was one other one that I remember seeing.
Oh, how about Sergachev getting the 8-year, like $60 whatever million contract to stay with Tampa Bay?
Yeah, and what's the other one? Chernak?
And Chernak too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big contract.
8 for 52. Yeah.
Yeah, I know he's pretty solid and stuff, but you just don't necessarily see that kind of money going to that type of player. But there's something there. They obviously like him, and he's had some success. So yeah, big money being thrown around there. So it'll be interesting. Maybe everybody's seeing that the cap's going to be going up over the next few years too. So. Yeah. So they're kind of pre-spending their money, which is always a nice thing to do.
The Lightning are doing similar to what the Caps did after winning. Is hey, we're gonna reward our people and we're gonna and sign everybody long term. Oshie had the long deal before that. Carlson got the deal after winning. Kuznetsov has the long deal. Like if this is your core, if you say these are our people, it's like the Penguins now with Crosby, Malkin, and Letang. This is your core, and for all the things that could happen with the Capitals and guys moving around, you got Tom Wilson, you got Ovechkin, you got Kuznetsov. There's something to be said about consistency.
Yeah, and if I guess if you can build around these guys and they're solid, then you got to go ahead and do that. But just saying, I just thought it was interesting that there's some serious dollars being thrown around, but that's the way that everybody wants to get paid now. So,
well, you did this in free agency too. Like everybody's got to take. I mean, by the way, Andre Burakovsky cashed out. Yes. 5 years, $25 million. Congratulations to Andre Burakovsky, 2-time Stanley Cup champion now with the Colorado with the Caps and the Avalanche, and he's just following Philip Grubauer around now.
Yeah, seriously is. He must love Gruby. I didn't know that.
but that's a nice deal for Andre, and I don't blame him whatsoever. He's got his championships. He's got his name on the cup twice. Go to Seattle. Hope to be part of kind of building up a team there.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? Give it a shot. Berkey's a guy that can make an impact on a play, especially if they, we talked about letting guys have a little bit of a leash. Berkey needs a little bit of a leash so that he can do his good, but he can also make his mistakes and not be penalized for it. And it seemed to happen a little bit there in Colorado. So, maybe it was a good move by him to get out of there and kind of use his good name and his history so far in the league from what he's done to get that contract. But I think Seattle will be a fun place. Berkey doesn't have kids either, so he can kind of move freely and not have to worry about some of the baggage to come along with you when you have a big family to carry around. So good deal for him. Super happy for him. Happy that he made those plays in the playoffs, broke a couple bones.
I was going to say shot blocker extraordinaire, Andre Burakovsky.
Love that. That's the playoffs for you right there. Like people block shots and get into it. It's the same thing when the Caps won. Ovi was blocking shots that he wouldn't normally block, and you have to get to that place mentally. And some guys can't quite bring them to it. But I always remembered it was weird during the regular season. You go and block a shot and you do your same thing. You wince a little bit. The playoffs come and then you're just like staring down that puck, right? You're watching it leave the blade right into you. You see it the whole way. Regular season, you don't do that. And so it's I was just happy to see Berkey do that, get paid, on to the next place. So it's actually been, for me, it's been a really fun free agency because I normally don't pay too close attention to it, but this one I was kind of dialed in a little bit more. So yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, and like we do kind of everyone does winners and losers of free agency. Like I'm throwing the Caps in the winners pile just for getting a goaltender, for getting Connor Brown in the trade, adding Dylan Strome, kind of shoring up everything. Everything that Max is supposed to do. Carolina I put among the winners for getting Brent Burns and Pacioretty. Vegas and Philly certainly among the losers. And I'm even the Toronto Maple Leafs, your old team you used to root for, the Toronto Maple Leafs, with Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov in goal. I don't know how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure either. And they brought in Jordy Ben, who I know, and Connor Carrick, I think, too, right?
Connor went to Boston, right?
Oh, sorry, he went to Boston. Yeah,
Connor Carrick to the Bruins. Yeah,
they brought in somebody else, another defenseman. Oh, Victor Mete, that's who it was. Yeah, so they brought in a couple other guys that I know there. Yeah, it's hard. Toronto's a hard place to get guys to come to, right? Unless you're from that area, it's sometimes difficult to bring guys in. So not all that surprised. So that'll be interesting. I think Ottawa did pretty good too.
Oh yeah,
Ottawa looked good. Having Giroux come back to his place, he's going to want to, you think at least, want to play good in front of the home crowd and stuff. So yeah, I think they did all right as well. So there's definitely a few winners and losers there. I'm curious to see how Florida's going to be this year. I was still thinking that. Yeah, do we talk about it? Maybe Bobrovsky leaving. Or I talked about that with somebody else, that they were thinking maybe the Caps could find a way to wiggle him out of there. And
wouldn't you rather have Darcy Kemper at $5 million than Sergei Bobrovsky at 10?
Well, at 10, 100%.
Yeah.
But if they were to be able to keep a little bit of that contract somehow and do it that way, that was the only way I was thinking that, yeah, that could actually happen. And imagine having Bob come back and find a way to be old Bob. That would be unbelievable. But tough to do.
Yeah, this is the safest bet with Darcy Kemper, I think, in a guy who just won, and if you have a structured team in front of him, which we know Peter Laviolette does, that's the perfect place for Darcy Kemper, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I just hope he's solid, like you said, make those the standard saves and occasionally steal one, but just don't let in the softies. That's what the team needs right now. There is enough firepower to go out there and score goals, not like Colorado, but there's still enough. So you have a goalie that's just solid. That's what we've been wanting.
Yeah, well, Brian McClellan got most of his shopping done. I think if there's anything more, we'll talk about it next week on All Caps. We might have Pace Adjuster, the former Capitals PR guy, who has a lot of stories to tell, and some stories he can't tell. Karl, thanks again for doing this. Thanks for everybody listening on All Caps.